Dot represents coordinates. The rectangular coordinate plane, usually drawn on a graph paper, comprises of two number lines that cross each other at right angles of 90 degrees. The horizontal number line is called the x-axis and the vertical number line is called the y-axis. So this is x and this is y. The two number lines meet at the point that represents the number 0 for both the lines. So if you look at the horizontal number line or the x-axis, we have a 0 here and all the positives to the right of 0. Let's say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, this is 8, and so on. Note that each mark doesn't have to be 1 unit. Feel free to choose your own scale on the x and the y-axis. On the other side of 0, we have the negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, and so on. There's no end to the number line and therefore there's no end to the x-axis. On the y-axis, this is 0 and all the positives are above 0. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. And on the other side of 0, we have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, and so on. And the number line carries on and on, therefore there is no end to the y-axis as well, on either side. We can of course just represent only a portion of it, both the y-axis and the x-axis, on a given graph paper. Also note that like a normal number line, you have the decimals and the fractions in between the integers. So if you were to mark off the point 0.5 or 1/2 on the x-axis, it would be right in the middle between 0 and 1. Similarly, 1/2 or 0.5 on the y-axis would just be over here, exactly halfway between 0 and 1 on the y-axis. The location of any point in the xy coordinate plane is given by its x and y coordinates, written as x comma y, x first and then y, and the order does matter, such that if you draw a perpendicular line from that point on the x-axis, it gives you the x coordinate of the point. For this particular point, the x coordinate happens to be 5. So we write 5 comma. In the same way, to find the y coordinate of this point, draw a perpendicular line from the point on the y-axis, and the number where it cuts the y-axis becomes the y coordinate of this particular point. So for this point, we have the y value as 3, and therefore the coordinate of this point becomes 5 comma 3. Note that all points on a given straight line that is perpendicular to the x-axis or parallel to the y-axis have got the same value of the x coordinate. So no matter which point you were to pick on this particular straight line, and you could actually extend the straight line on either side of this point, so all points on this given straight line have an x coordinate of 5. Similarly, all points on any straight line that is perpendicular to the y-axis and parallel to the x-axis have got the same value of the y coordinate. In particular, any point on the y-axis will have an x coordinate of 0, and any point on the x-axis will have a y coordinate of 0. Let's try out a few problems on our own. Let's have this point out here and let's name it as A. Let's have a B here. Let's have a C here. Perhaps here, C. And let's have a D here. Let's try and find out the x and y coordinates of each of these 4 points. Let's start with A. If you look at point A and imagine drawing a perpendicular line from that point A on the x-axis, it meets the x-axis at this number 4, and therefore the x-coordinate of this point A is going to be 4, comma, if you do the same on the y-axis, the y-coordinate of this point is 6. So A is 4, comma 6. Similarly for B, if you draw a perpendicular line from B on the x-axis, the number that you reach is negative 5, therefore the x-coordinate of B is negative 5, comma, the y-coordinate of B is going to be 4. How about C? The x-coordinate of C, as we can see, is negative 8, and the y-coordinate of C is equal to negative 2. And for point D, the x-coordinate is 2, and the y-coordinate is negative 5. Can you plot the points E, that's let's say negative 1, comma 6, and F, that is 6, comma negative 1 on this coordinate plane? Let's start with E. The x-coordinate of E is negative 1. Therefore, you want to start with 0 on the x-axis and move over one place to the left where you see a negative 1. And then if you look back, the y-coordinate of point E is 6, or a positive 6, which means we need to go up from that point 6 places, and this is exactly where you end up. This is point E, negative 1, comma 6. Similarly, if you do the same thing on point F, 6 is the x-coordinate, so you want to start from 0, move 6 units now on the other side of 0, positive 6, and then because the y-coordinate is negative 1, you want to go down by 1 unit, and therefore you end up here, this is point F, 6, comma negative 1. This is how you read and plot points on the xy coordinate plane.